The Maputo Protocol on Human Rights and People's Rights on Rights of Women in Africa and the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption are still unpopular to a good number of women activists and gender-based organizations. The provisions of these continental instruments are yet to be fully utilized by women activists and gender-based organizations in their work on preventing and combating corruption as it affects women and girls in Africa. I'll move straight to challenges and prospects. Here, participants restated that girl child education, medical services for women and girls are poorly and dwindling, while bad roads, unemployment, sexual exploitation, and maternal deaths as a result of corrupt practices by high-level government officials who have failed to do the needful. They argue that because of corruption in the health sector, for example, women do not have access to basic maternal drugs. There are deaths of babies, deaths of mothers resulting from poor medical care. Participants here further argue that this forum should awaken the consciousness of those entrusted with public funds. Let me move straight to the recommendations, which we structured also into 3 parts. First is for the women activists and women-focused based CSOs. One, women and men gender activists, CSOs, and media should be well informed about provisions of Maputo Protocol and the AUCPC Convention for them to be able to inform the citizenry. It is only when you know better, you do better, and you demand better. With the knowledge of the provisions of these instruments, they can easily go to the grassroots, educate and sensitize people about the basics of accountability, especially women. There is need for women and men gender activists, CSOs and media to embark on massive awareness creation and advocacy towards changing the stereotype and pushing for policy reforms that disempowers women across the continent. Strong CSOs are needed to be able to foster accountability on public sectors. For the member states, African governments should endeavor to enforce its gender policies that promote and enhance women's participation in governance. Mainstreaming gender equality and women empowerment in all policy initiatives aimed at preventing and combating corruption at national level is paramount. Effective policies are needed to tackle the corruption that keeps women and girls trapped in a circle of blocked opportunities. The actualization of this would give women the opportunity of being deeply involved in the fight against corruption, especially on specific issues that affects women's and girls' rights. Preventing and combating corruption require an informed political withdrawing from national, regional, and continental levels as part of the struggles for the advancement of human rights and women's rights in Africa. In this regard, member states should be encouraged to work hand in glove with member states' national anti-corruption bodies should be encouraged to work hand in glove with the national human rights institutions, Ministry of Gender, women groups, to deliberately mainstream gender-related issues in the anti-corruption efforts. I'm skipping lots of it. Then for the African Union and REX, at the continental level, the AU-ABC should forge closer working relationship with the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights within the framework of AGA platform to achieve this goal. In order to mainstream gender issues into its work, the AU-ABC should also reach out to the Pan-African Women's Organization based in Pretoria. In this regard, preventing and combating corruption should go hand in hand with advancing human rights in a holistic manner, paying attention to political rights and civil liberties, as well as socio-economic and cultural rights. For the development partners, international organizations and development partners should continue to support the efforts by the AU, REX, member states, civil society, and media in educating and sensitizing citizens on anti-corruption legal frameworks and their provisions, especially as it relates to women and girls' rights. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Dr. Chijioke, please. Now, I hope all of your reflections have been captured, but like I said before, if not, we are going to send you through email so that you can input whatever you think is missing. So this is not the final outcome statement. So for the closing, I would like to call upon Charity to give her closing reflection. Charity?
Thank you very much, Magda, for the opportunity. Your Excellency, Ambassador Amoah, Director Matlosa, distinguished delegates and participants, I think as we come to the close of the 2018 Gender Pre-Forum, convened under the theme, Corruption and Women's Rights in Africa, Trends, Challenges, and Prospects, allow me to thank you all for having been a part of this forum. The different perspectives and the different insights and perspectives in as far as fighting corruption and promoting the enjoyment of women's rights have been very enriching during these 2 days. And some of the reflections I go back home with actually that first and foremost, the various discussions we've had just show how complex fighting corruption is, because actually corruption itself is a complex phenomenon. Fighting it and coming up with solutions for it is complex. And the emphasis has been on the fact that actually the more we fight corruption, we are contributing to the enjoyment or promotion of women's rights. And it has come out clearly that corruption actually impedes the enjoyment of women's rights and should therefore be fought if women's rights are to be entrenched on the continent. And together as a group, I think we can do it. There's no one single institution or individual that can do that. And it has also come out that enough normative frameworks, institutional setups do exist on the continent that if effectively implemented would render the fight against corruption winnable and hence promote the enjoyment of women's rights. Specifically when it comes to the Maputo Protocol, I think from the discussions we've had, it's been noted that it's a very progressive instrument. And because of this, I think the onus is upon us all to ensure that member states implement the various provisions that are spelled out there. And actually, when it comes to that one, we need to ensure that as defenders of human rights, as anti-corruption crusaders, we know the key provisions that are there, and in turn, we ensure that other people that we work with, other people that we are supposed to be networking with, are also made aware of these frameworks and provisions. Only then, when they are fully aware and appreciate the various provisions, are they going to make a move out of that and ensure that these provisions actually do not just remain on paper, do not remain as discussion points in forums such as this, but that they begin to have an impact on people out there, the ordinary citizen on the streets, the girls in the villages. Actually, on this point, I'm quite passionate about this, and a lot of us in here have been witness to perhaps a girl child just at the attainment of puberty is whisked out of school and told that we are going to marry a 60-year-old man. A girl, even before she gets the hack of getting used to puberty and all, she's been whisked off to service a 60-year-old man in bed. It's evil, it's criminal. And those of us who are actually here and know these provisions that have been provided for under the Maputo Protocol, we should ensure that we do something tangible so that that girl out there can be protected by these provisions that have already been put out, well spelled. It's now time to have these different provisions implemented. Only then are we going to see a change in the way women's rights are enjoyed on the continent. Therefore, all of us, not just those women who are privileged to sit in a setup like this one, but even for those girls out in the village with no one to speak for them, they should benefit from these provisions, and they can only do that the more we talk about them, the more we sensitize other people who can reach out and ensure that when these are violated, action is done, and punitive measures are actually taken against the perpetrators of these. In terms of the fight against corruption and the promotion of women's rights, it's not a battle that can be won in one day. Sometimes the various efforts that are being put in place may not seem to bring out the desired impact there and then, but then that's where we need to forge ahead. We should never give up and ensure that each one of us in our respective professions, in our respective countries, we do something to ensure that these provisions actually begin to make an impact on the lives of many people who are not able and are not privileged to be part of these conversations, but are nevertheless affected every day by the things that happen due to the non-implementations of these frameworks. So on that note, I think I should stop. I shouldn't prolong further. People are tired and they are looking forward to other activities. So Magda, allow me to stop on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you have already discussed about this, but we are, or familiar about this, but we are on the 16th day of activism against gender-based violence. And I think Charity has also nibbled on a few things relating to gender-based violence, and I thank you for that. For the next statement, closing remark, I would like to call Director to the podium to give us a closing remark.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Magda, moderator of this closing session. I would like to start with the humble request. Because when I came to attend this meeting, I had my expectations, which I shared with you during the opening session. And I'm happy to tell you that you have exceeded those expectations. Seriously, I'm saying this from the bottom of my heart. You have exceeded those expectations. I'm so happy about this meeting and its outcome. And that's why I'm delighted to give this short remarks. Your Excellency, the Ambassador, my sister, Charity, frankly, I'm happy. And for that reason, I'm going to be very brief. We have talked. And what I will now encourage us to do is to then get down to work. We need to go back and organize, because it will not serve us any purpose to have shared such rich debate and discussions with such deep, rich policy recommendations. You heard our rapporteur summarizing them. So we need to go back and get organized and get down to work. And for me, this work is at 3 levels, mainly. 3 main levels, maybe 4, actually. Maybe 4, to be more precise, 4 levels. It's at the national level, where we have to make a difference. That is at the national level, where a real difference has to be made. And at that level, we have to be led by anti-corruption bodies. They have to be well organized. Working, of course, as the rapporteur said, with human rights institutions, national human rights commissions. That's the first layer, and that's the critical layer, because that's where change will happen, and change has to happen there. The second layer is the regional layer, regional level. The regional level here in Africa, for example, we're talking about 5 regions. Central Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, North Africa, and West Africa. There are 5. So that regional level activism has to be driven, as we said, by regional economic communities. We also have a task to ensure that those regional economic communities are assisted by regional anti-corruption networks. That over a bridge. He said, come out, my friend. Now, you know, you asked me a question when we were at the house. How I managed to build that house. Eh? Now, come out. You see this highway? This highway. You see this highway? Yes. Yeah, I can see. Yes. I'm the one who mobilized funds to build this massive highway. And you know what happened? I took 10%. I took 10% to build that mansion that you saw. Is that so? Yes. Then they went back to Nigeria. Back to Nigeria, after a year or two, he invites his friend. Come visit us. They come with the family. Then his mansion was twice the size of the other one in Malaysia. Then the Malaysian guy asked the same question. He said, oh, don't worry. Let's have breakfast first, and then I'll take you around. And then they took breakfast, leave the family behind. Then they drove on a dusty road. And then in that same dusty road, under the bridge, the same dusty road, they said, get out of the car now. Okay, yes. Yeah, come. You asked me the question about my house. You see this highway? Then the Malaysian, which highway now? Which highway? Then he says, precisely my point. You told me you took 10%. Me, I took 100%. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we're really happy that we have achieved this much on this conference. And all I can say is to wish you bon voyage to different destinations. We are more than ready now to kickstart the high-level dialogue in a day's time. When is it? After tomorrow, yes, on the 28th. And we really look forward to having some of you there, if not all of you, to join that very historic dialogue. And with those remarks, I would like to thank you so much. And we really appreciate your presence and your contributions to this forum. Thank you, Magda.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. I have to say, the one thing that we are privileged working for the DPA is we get stories like that every day. So we're very happy that you shared with us another story. For the closing remark, I would like to call Ambassador Amma to close this meeting for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Magda. Director, the story you just told, I have heard it, but with a little twist. Yes. It wasn't the finance ministers from Nigeria and Malaysia, yes, but rather the oil ministers, yes, from Nigeria and Saudi Arabia. Yes. But it was still 10% and 100%. My brothers and sisters from Ghana, I believe you've all heard what one of our former presidents said when he was faced with the issue of corruption. He said corruption is as old as man. Director Matlosa and Madam Charity, dear and distinguished participants, me personally, I'm very happy to have had this opportunity to be part of this exercise. I call it exercise. We've had 2 days of very informative, educative, and incisive discussions. Sometimes it's been intense and very emotional. Of course, that is what corruption brings in us. There have been a lot of takeaways. We've been told that the fight against corruption has to be taken from several fronts, including education, empowerment, good governance and leadership, enforcement, and accountable government. We've also been told that corruption is not gender neutral. It affects all in society, meaning men and women. However, women are more affected by men when they are accessing such services as health, education, etc., etc. Corruption denies us of good skills, good roads, potable water. And these are the areas that concern women the most. It increases also the cost of the provision of such services. The yardstick used in measuring women when it comes to the issues of corruption is different from that used for men. And I dare say that most often than not, women do the most damage to their fellow women. We criticize the most. Just to give you an example, during the elections in US, one of the reasons why Hillary Clinton lost was because she couldn't secure the women votes. Some hated her with a passion, but they couldn't even identify the reasons why. So, yes, we are here, and we're talking about women who are disadvantaged. I will say that all of us in this room are very fortunate to be here. So as we go back, I beg of our brothers to join us. The fight has just started. We should all become activists. Corruption has been with us for a long time, and I bet you it's not going to go away now. We have to carry out the fight. We have to educate our people. What is corruption? It's not only the giving or taking of money. Corruption, there's corruption of the mind. We have a lot to do. We have to educate our children, our mothers, our husbands, our relatives. We shouldn't point fingers at others without looking first at ourselves. You know, we have this adage in Akan language. As you are pointing a finger at somebody, the rest, which is four, are all pointing at you. We have to examine ourselves first and carry out the fight. We have heard that in Africa, and in that matter, in our countries, we have all the instruments, the mechanisms, and the protocols we need to fight corruption. But sadly enough, nothing has been done. Politics in Africa, I don't want to go to the rest of the world. Let me use the word, it's dirty. And most women are not able to. Even where we have women in politics, most of them are put there by men who have their own reasons for doing that. And that is why when women enter into politics, they don't last. Because they go there not on their own volition, but they are sponsored. So they don't really know what they're going to do there. They haven't thought through what is required of them as women. So as we live, this is something that I think we can start small conversations from the home again, our workplaces, and gradually, it's not going to be fast or quick, but it's going to be gradual. We will make a change. If you're able to change one person's mind, I think that it trickles, but the ripple effect will eventually happen. Another takeaway is that the fight against corruption should not be done in silos. It should be all embracing. It should involve everybody. Various government departments and ministries need to work together. Men and women need to work together. Brothers and sisters need to work together. If we are able to do that, work together, come together, collectively. I mean, there's power in numbers. If we are able to do that, I think next time when we meet, we'll have good news to share with each other. I don't want to bore you. I know you are all tired. I can go on and on because, as I said, corruption can be very emotional. You look at the offices where you work. We've said all that. but at times it's disheartening. To give a personal example, when I finished my first degree, I did my national service, and then, of course, I was looking for a job. So I was introduced to a director, not you. And so, I mean, I put in my application, I'll go, he will ask me to go and come. I did that for about 3 weeks, and I was really getting irritated. Then he had the guts to tell me, this weekend, what are you doing? Come and cook for me. You know, I just looked at him. And he could be my dad, so I didn't want to be rude. So I just said, oh, okay, I'll come. And that was the end of the story. It happens a lot. And our societies are such that women are not able to voice out these things. When we talk of empowerment, I ask myself, who is supposed to empower who? We've said a lot, but there are still a lot of questions that we need to answer. Let's go out, engage our various communities, our sisters, our brothers, and I believe that we will make a change. After all, that is why we are all here. I thank you once again for this opportunity, and I hope that we meet again. Thank you very much. Somebody said, by the power vested in me. Yes. I think I've been given the power. Yes. So it's been
few housekeeping announcements before we all depart. All right, a few housekeeping announcements before we depart. For tomorrow's program,